Okay, so we're back to hour 3, and we're going to build our own little API. So let's create a file, and we'll just call it api.php. Now, when some other application calls our API, remember, APIs, they're just two applications talking to one another. There's no user interface. So we don't need any HTML code. We just want to send our data. So we'll delete everything here. We'll put on some PHP tags, because there's no HTML at all. All we want to do is go and fetch our list of albums, or perhaps a single album, and display that data in JSON format. Well, actually, first thing we can do is we'll connect to our database, because we need to fetch the albums from the database, right? Down at the bottom. We'll disconnect. So we're going to, for starters, we want our API to fetch all of the album data. We'll create a new command. For the moment, we have no parameters. We're just getting everything in the table. Oops, sorry, I forgot the call. Execute. We'll execute our command. We'll fetch all the data and we'll store it in our albums. So this code is identical to what we have on the albums.php page. .php, we are looping through and we're displaying this as an HTML table in rows and columns. And if I open up albums, pretty much the same code. Select the albums, although we did add the search to it. So we'll create an empty array, and then we're going to loop through our list of albums and add each album. So it's basically an array of arrays. The array is one album with all of the different fields: ID, title, year. We'll loop through the albums and add each album to the JSON array. We're not writing any HTML code at all here. So how could we add the whole album? What would we need in here? We want to add the whole album to our albums array. I'm wondering if we even need a loop. I'm wondering if we could just take this object, convert it to JSON. Yeah, actually, hang on. We'll comment that out. We may be able to do this even simpler. Comment that stuff out. Let's see if we use JSON encode to convert our albums array to JSON and then just print it out. Not sure if this will work or not. We'll try it. Right, Gary, like you, I like less code rather than more, right? He said that's why we use an API. So let's see what we get if we take our albums array and encode it as JSON and print it out. Actually, I can run this on localhost. So if we just go to our API. Oh. Almost. Right. One small problem. What's wrong with it here? Everything. Notice, so we've got the album ID 1000. First it's in here as album ID, then it's in here as field 0. Title is in as California, and then field 1, it repeats. So we're not quite there. This isn't quite what we want. Let's see if we've got any parameters in our JSON encode. Let's go check our JSON encode function. So why are we getting that duplicate? So when this is the array, we get that. Let's see. Strings are automatically turned into numbers. Okay, well, maybe that's not quite what we want, so we'll try this and see. Let's see if we get the same result. If we try and loop through it this way. So we'll add the current album to our array. And now we'll try to JSON encode it. Just add one album at a time to the array and then encode the whole thing as JSON. We'll see if we get any different, any different result. Now we got the exact same thing. Try this for a second. Okay. So we may have to do this. There's probably a more efficient way of doing it, but we may just have to add one field and one row at a time, kind of the way we output it. Trying to do the whole thing as a block, just convert it to JSON, but it's not quite in the format we need it to be. Let's try this. Album count equals albums. So if we know how many albums there are, we can create our array of the same size. And maybe start a counter here. Oops. We'll just see if this will just give us the IDs this way. Oh. May also have to do with how we're calling fetch. We'll just try this. Okay, we're closer here. Let's see. So how many fields do we have in our array? We've got album, title, year. We've got 5 fields. And things 7 and 5. This number of rows and that number of columns. All right. Try one last thing, and I may have to leave this for today, because I do want to give you your lab. Let's just check fetch all. So fetch all returns an array. It defaults to PDO fetch both. If we just want the column, maybe we can use that. All right, one last try. If not, I'll have to leave this for another day. I'll just cut that for a minute, see what we get. So that gives us an array, but only of our IDs, because that's just giving us a single column. So we don't want single column. Okay, I'll have to think about our we're not quite where we want it to be. Sorry about that. So I'll have to think about how we want to do this. Okay, I'm going to give you your lab. So I'll come up with the solution. We'll maybe go over at the start of class next week. So here's the world's shortest lab. So you need to search for the Facebook developer documentation. And you need to find the Facebook comments API. In order to do it, now you have to be logged into Facebook to do this. Just like on Google, Facebook will ask you to create an application, and it will ask you to generate an API key, a public, I think they call it a client ID and a client secret, is what Facebook calls it.
Do we have to already be a member of Facebook in order for that to work?
Well, if you're not, you have to use an existing Facebook account or you have to create one. Okay, because they only make the API keys available to people with Facebook accounts. So then once you do that, sorry, this says your beers page, this should be your albums page. They'll give you the code, much like Google did and like the Weather Network did, to generate the Facebook comment box down here. So you need to then publish your page. So make sure it's running on Azure or DreamHost so I can see it, not on localhost. I can't run it on localhost. Okay. So just send me the link to your albums page, and I should be able to see the Facebook comment box at the bottom, and I should be able to make a comment on your page. So you'll want to use, in generating the comment box, you need to provide Facebook the URL to your albums page. You don't have to create a separate Lab 4 folder, just put it in your Lesson 11 folder. So this URL you have to include on the Facebook developer portal. So go there, just follow the instructions, and then they'll have a button that says Get Code. And then you'll copy and paste that code into this page down here to generate your box. Okay, so all I want is the link to your albums page with the API running.